Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode I'm joined by co-host Greg Ramsey. From the mind of George Lucas comes the most anticipated science fiction sequel of all time, bringing back a legendary cast of characters embroiled in an intergalactic war that threatens to destroy all hope of peace in the universe. We're talking about The Empire Strikes Back. The Empire Strikes Back was released in the United States on May 21st, 1980, and is the sequel to 1977's wildly successful Star Wars, which redefined the science fiction fantasy genre, becoming the first true blockbuster of modern cinema. Empire was a continuation of the Star Wars story, which followed the war between the evil Empire and the heroic Rebel Alliance. The Empire's primary weapon of mass destruction, the Death Star, was destroyed in Star Wars' final act, and the new film saw the Imperial Army regroup and press down even harder on the Rebel forces. Original cast members Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher all returned for the sequel, as well as Peter Mayhew, Anthony Daniels, Kenny Baker, and James Earl Jones. Fans saw the natural progression of the main characters in The Empire Strikes Back. Han Solo was a trusted leader in the Rebel Alliance, Princess Leia was the military mind at the helm, and Luke Skywalker was the experienced soldier learning the ways of the Force. Darth Vader returned as the film's main antagonist and was out for revenge against Han Solo due to the Corellians' actions at the end of Star Wars. The Empire was on the offensive for much of the movie as the Rebels fought to gain an advantage. The original cast was joined by two important new additions to the story. Lando Calrissian, portrayed by Billy Dee Williams, was an old friend from Han's past, while Yoda, voiced by Frank Oz, was a bizarre creature who was strong in the ways of the Force. Luke Skywalker's Jedi training kicked into gear in Empire thanks to the newly introduced Yoda, who became Luke's master. But Luke's training ended early when he attempted a rescue mission for Han Solo, who was captured by Darth Vader. Luke and Vader dueled in the film's final act, and the shocking revelation that followed the fight laid the groundwork for the third film in the trilogy. The Empire Strikes Back is widely regarded as the best film in the Star Wars saga and one of the greatest films ever made. The movie has grossed over $548 million worldwide, and in 2010 was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. Its impact on filmmaking, as well as pop culture, is significant, and it remains one of the most popular and most revered movies of all time. And that's the lowdown on The Empire Strikes Back. Our review of Star Wars Episode 4 was Episode 4 of the podcast. It was only fitting. I would love to tell you that we timed it that way, and I guess we kind of did, but we kind of didn't also. It just so happened to be that, I think it was Greg, I think you were the one that had the idea to do Star Wars to begin with, and it just so happened we were up to Episode 4, and I was like, oh my God, you know what this means? This is Episode 4. So after our little nerd out over that little nugget, it became, okay, cool, this is only fitting we do this. Now, as you can see, this is not Episode 5. We like to space things out, man. So no, this is not Episode 5, which would be fitting, obviously, because The Empire Strikes Back was Episode 5. Keep in mind, none of this stuff was numbered until after the fact. And it's just something that George Lucas decided to do. Now, he claims he always had all of these movies written down on paper for years, and that Star Wars A New Hope was indeed Episode 4. I submit, hooey on that. I'm sorry. I love Lucas for what he gave us. But, it wasn't called Episode 4 from the jump. They added that bit in later. I'm just saying. But that's a nitpicking detail. There's a lot of things to nitpick about this movie, but not because of this movie. The Empire Strikes Back is a classic. We all know this. You don't have to read the notes from this show or listen to me and Greg opine about it for the next hour to believe that. Anyone with half a brain on this planet knows The Empire is a classic film. But the reason it's been nitpicked for years is because of what Lucas did with the original, well, I should say the follow-up trilogy, which goes episodes 1 through 3, which completely screwed with the continuity as we knew it, and Empire was not safe from that scrutiny. So, it is what it is. But forgetting about episodes 1, 2, and 3, which I think we've all tried to do, God knows I have, take this film on the face of it for what it is. Like I said, a classic. Greg, it's an odd time to ask this because it's my lead-off question to you, but it's a good one. Screw it, I'm asking. Is this film better than the original Star Wars?
Well, in my opinion, I think it is because of the progression of the characters. And also, personally, it was the first Star Wars film that I got to go see at the theater. So, yeah, I guess I would have to say that me and Empire Strikes Back have a very special relationship. And I'm sure there's other people out there that would disagree with me, and that's fine. We can agree to disagree.
Right.
But I remember my mom and dad letting me go to see this movie at the theater, but my sister chaperoning. And when we got to the cheap theater, it was like $1.50, $2 at the time. We went in and we were given these cool posters. I thought it was the greatest thing at the time. It's like, wow, we're getting something free here, just showing up for a movie. And that was something memorable right there to start off. And I didn't really know what I was getting into because, again, this was my first Star Wars experience. But, I was a little, out of sorts, of course. But, it didn't take long for me to figure out, what was, who the good guys, the bad guys were. It's very simple. And, I immediately, fell in love with the characters, Luke, Han and Leia, Chewbacca, C-3PO, R2-D2. And, Darth Vader, of course, he was menacing and kind of scary there. So, the voice and everything. But, yeah, I just enjoyed the whole theatrics of it. For me, Empire is, my favorite. Just saying.
I got to agree with you. And I remember back to that scene in Clerks where Dante and Randall are debating what the best Star Wars film is. And I think it was Dante said Empire. And Randall's like, blasphemy. And Dante's like, man, Empire had the better ending because it was down. It was a miserable ending because it was like all hope is lost. That's the better ending because life is nothing but a series of bad endings. And I'm like, the logic is terrible, but it kind of makes sense. I think this is, and I got it. You talk about having a relationship with this movie. I do too. I got a big relationship with episode 4, obviously for a lot of different reasons. But Empire is, it's almost a perfect film. And I know we've said that before about other movies. I get it. But my God. And it's inarguably, unequivocally the best sequel of all time. We hold the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man Part 2 in high regard. I know you do. That film is amazing. Pun intended. Very good. Right? Very good. And you could say the Endgame is better than Infinity War. What an amazing follow-up that film is. But, all things considered, to me, Empire set the bar for what a sequel could be. I really did. And we haven't even gotten into it here yet. But right off the bat, I'm telling you, man, I agree with you. I just don't know how anybody could hate on this movie for any reason. And I honestly have never heard anyone hate on this movie. It just doesn't happen because everyone realizes and understands what a classic, a true classic this film really is. And it's an American original, man. The Star Wars story is, it's one of those things that you can say, well, it's like baseball and apple pie and all that crap. It really is a very American sort of idea that we have, even though a lot of these films, just like the first Star Wars, was shot in England. That takes us to the director. George Lucas was not as hands-on in terms of being the director. He oversaw everything. Obviously, it's his baby. But he handed the directorial reins to Irving Kershner, who did a fantastic job. And, of course, the story was by Lucas, produced by Lucasfilm. And, yes, as we said, it's the follow-up.
Yeah, and you talk about, the best, probably the best sequel ever to a movie, a trilogy, if you will. You can't say that about a lot of movies because most of the time the sequel, it's disappointing. But this was better than the first, in my opinion, like you said.
And I love the way you put it, the natural progression for the characters. And that to me is where so many sequels have failed in the past. Is the number of times we have seen a part 2, a follow up, whatever you want to call it, and 10 minutes into the movie, we're like, what's going on? Not because we're lost, but because the characters are not themselves. And that's the issue. If you don't have a coherent path for the characters, then the thing's it's gonna fail, man. And I think that there was a very coherent path for these characters. And look, we don't have to get into the Disney trilogy. We can if you want, right? But that's the chief complaint among critics and fans alike of the Disney trilogy, the new trilogy that they just wrapped up the Skywalker saga. The chief complaint has been the characters are either not evolving or their evolution makes no sense. And I'm going to tell you something. I enjoyed all 3 films. I did. I'm not going to go back and say, all of a sudden say, oh, I hated those movies. I didn't. I enjoyed them. They were entertaining. But if you really pick those films apart, dude, a lot of that stuff does not make sense in terms of what Rey did in this film compared to the next film. It just doesn't jive. It doesn't make any sense. I can't say that at all about Episode 4, New Hope, and The Empire Strikes Back. These characters are a natural progression. It's the best way to put it. A natural progression for these characters. It would make sense that Han stuck around. When we covered Star Wars in our Episode 4, we said that, Han did the right thing. He came back and saved the day. Without Han Solo, the Death Star is not destroyed in the first film, dude. I mean, you could say that because Vader had Luke in his sights. So obviously now, the main driving force of this film for Vader is revenge against Han. Talk about it.
Oh, yeah. Darth Vader holds Han responsible for the destruction of the Death Star. And, obviously Luke getting away. He had Luke dead to rights. And out of nowhere, Han comes in blasting away, saves the day pretty much. I mean, without Han, there is no sequel.
Oh my God, you're totally right. Dude, you're totally right. Because Luke, all right, so this is what we, as wrestling fans, call fantasy booking, right? So let's fantasy book this before we even get started, because this is fun. So Han doesn't come back, okay? That's number 1. Number 2, as we said, Vader had Luke in his sights. Now, Ben was talking to him when he told him to trust his feelings, and Luke turned off his targeting computer. And remember the voice in his head, like, Luke, you turned off your computer. What's wrong? He's like, nothing. I'm all right. But I guess Ben could have at the last minute said, Luke, look out. And then maybe he could have got away from Vader, but that might be a stretch. So let's say the Han doesn't show up and Luke is dead. I mean, is Princess Leia next? I mean, what happens now? You kind of assumed the rebellion would keep going, but this was their big shot. And if this mission fails, this could have been the end for the Rebel Alliance, man. God, that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, Episode 4 was called A New Hope for a reason.
Right.
Luke obviously fulfilled that hope. I mean, him, remaining, alive and well is crucial to the second and third film.
And I don't think I made this point on Episode 4. And I don't know why, because I made this point to you in conversations long before we started doing our podcast. But I remember making the point to you that, in my estimation, Luke Skywalker's destruction of the Death Star in the first Star Wars film was the biggest cinematic moment, accomplishment for any fictional character in any movie ever. And that's big. That's a huge statement because I haven't seen every movie ever made. Okay, obviously I watch a lot of movies, but dude, that's a lot of screen time. Okay, but I couldn't at the time think of any accomplishment by a fictional character that was bigger than Luke destroying the Death Star. I couldn't think of a thing because had Star Wars ended after that moment, and that was it. We never got Empire. We didn't get Jedi. We didn't get the extended universe. We didn't get the cartoons. We got no comic books. We got nothing. Had it ended right there, that movie by itself would have been still regarded as an instant classic and a cult classic in a lot of ways, and made just a ton of money and made stars out of the cast and an amazing film from start to finish. And it doesn't lose its luster at all. It doesn't lose its shine at all. So, man, I again, dude, that's my point. I'll put you on the spot here and ask you, if you had to answer the question, has there been another accomplishment by any fictional character in a movie that you can recall bigger than this. I mean, could you say Tony Stark snapping his fingers at the end of Endgame? Is that one maybe?
I mean, it ranks up there, but I've got to go with you on this one. Luke's destruction of the Death Star. That is, the pinnacle for any hero ever in a science fiction movie, or maybe at all. I mean, because that was huge. Yeah, I mean, he was very confident going in. He knew it could be done, and despite, the odds against him. He said it was like back at Beggar's Canyon, shooting womp rats. So, I mean, yeah, Luke Skywalker, to me, and I think I've talked with a friend of mine about this before, is probably, I mean, the greatest superhero ever in a movie or maybe comic book. I don't know.
I mean, that's a big one. That's a huge topic of conversation right there. Maybe we'll deep dive that one day. We'll just do an episode just on Luke Skywalker. God, I'm already sold on it. You sold me. I love the idea. It's a good valid point. I mean, he is the classic hero. Rags to riches, right? He came from nothing. He was nobody. He was nothing at all, right? And he had dreams. He had vision of the future. He wanted to do something with his life and get off that rock that he was living on and become a hero, become a rebel and all this stuff and join the fight. He wanted to do the right thing. And then at the end of the day, not only does he do the right thing, he saves the entire Rebel Alliance from utter destruction. I mean, to me, dude, he might as well be wearing a cape with an S on his chest. That's pretty good stuff, man. Yeah, I can buy that argument all day, for sure. So, the original Star Wars was in 1977. Empire takes place 3 years later in our time. Well, guess what, kids? It takes place in 3 years their time as well. We're assuming that they measure time in months, in 365 days. Just stay with us, okay? We're doing the best we can here. So let's just assume that it's a 3-year time span. The film opens, they're on Hoth. First time we've ever seen Hoth or even heard of it, okay? Obviously. Because the expanded universe, the books and the novels and the comic books and all this other stuff wasn't really a thing at that time. Not yet. So it was our first look at Hoth. And man, all snow, all the time. I got to tell you, man, I'm not a fan of cold weather. If I was a member of the Rebel Alliance and they said, we're going to move our base to Hoth, I'd be like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm out. Listen, this has been fun. I'm going to take a vacation. So.
I got to disagree with you there. I'm more of a cold nature person now because I just can't stand the heat anymore. So I'm getting out of the kitchen. I probably wouldn't, I'd probably be right at home at Hoth. I mean, I know it's maybe it would be too cold for me. I don't know.
Oh, but man, I can't stand it.
It's probably like Antarctica times a million, maybe.
That's right.
Because the guy tells Han, it says your tauntaun will freeze in seconds.
and it basically did. And we've got that infamous scene where Luke collapses, Han finds him, and he's got to slice open the tauntaun and delivers the classic line, "I thought they smelled bad on the inside or on the outside." Right? So
yeah,
he delivered it better than I did just now. But a classic moment, man. Just the lightsaber ripping open the tauntaun's guts, dude. Come on.
Yeah, that was pretty gruesome to me as a kid when I first saw it. I was like, ugh. I was like, wait a minute, he's not going to put him in there, is he? I was like, oh no.
I was never one of those kids that got off on the gruesome stuff. I couldn't watch things like that. I had to turn away. I remember turning away. I couldn't handle it.
But I love the fact that Han is on his way out, and he hears that Luke, may be in trouble, some kind of distress because he hasn't made it back yet. So, Han, again, his character has evolved to the point where he's going to maybe go out and risk his life to save his good friend Luke. I love that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And there's even that scene when when the movie opens. And the film opens with the Empire sending out a probe droid, okay, to Hoth. So they've already suspected that Hoth could be a possibility. But I would imagine, we kind of gather when you first see Vader in this film, when he's talking to the generals around him, you kind of gather from those scenes that maybe the Empire's been sending probe droids out all over the place, trying to find any signs of the rebels. And so Hoth was just another planet they just sent a droid to. But you have that scene where they're both out there and Han says, I'm heading back, nothing's going to live out here anyway. And Luke says, Because Luke brings him up on his comm and says, Han, old buddy, do you read me? And I'm like, he called him old buddy. I'm like you said, man, these guys are friends. They're tight now. In 3 years' time, they have matured. Luke's matured especially. And Han's become a valued member of the Rebel Alliance, something we never could have pictured in A New Hope, dude. I don't think we saw this coming at all, but I liked the fact that these two guys got along. I enjoyed it. I still love it. I think it's just a cool touch, and they're boys at this point. You know what I'm saying? So I love it.
Yeah, they became like family, everybody included. You know, all the characters became a real tight-knit family, and they really cared about each other, and it made the audience want to care about them, and they just wanted to see more of that. And, you know, it's just, it was fantastic.
And, you know, it's like seeing familiar friends. It's like hanging out with family you haven't seen in a while. When you go to see this film or you watch it, it's like, oh, there's Han, there's Leia, there's Chewbacca, there's Luke. This is great. To me, man, I've grown up with these films like I know you have. Dude, to me, it's their family. These people are my family. They always have been. So yeah, seeing them together is great. We know the story. Luke is captured by a Wampa. We know in the specialized editions, and it's my biggest argument with George Lucas and the entire Lucasfilm empire, pun intended, is they refuse to release the despecialized editions, the original theatrical versions, which I actually have copies of. I do have copies of the theatrical versions, and they're amazing because they're just like I saw in the theaters as a kid. But in this one, you get a close-up view of the Wampa. You get a lot more screen time of him than you ever did before. But yeah, he captures Luke. Luke has to reach for the lightsaber. And, you know, the first time we hear Ben's voice in this film, and it's very early on. And he sees what Obi-Wan's what they call later. They refer to him as a Force ghost.
Yeah, he's still with Luke. He's still guiding him along, you know, because Luke is not yet where he wants to be. You know, he wants to be a Jedi, you know, a master Jedi, and he's not there yet. So Ben's still guiding him along, and you know, he reminds him, you know, he says, you know, just let yourself go. And I remember seeing Luke. You know, he was trying too hard at first, and then, you know, he kind of relaxed, let himself just dangle there for a second, and then you saw the lightsaber start to move, and you're like, oh, here we go.
Oh, what a great moment, dude. Because you're like, holy cow, he's still doing that Force stuff, man. Because, again, kids, you got to remember, those of you who are not mine and Greg's age here, or even close, there was no such thing as the extended, you know, Star Wars universe. We didn't have all the stuff you have today. So all we had was A New Hope to go off of. So Empire was the next chapter, but that was it. We were discovering this stuff for the first time as the rest of the world was. So yeah, we didn't go into this film with knowledge of anything, only of the original Star Wars film. It's just a different viewing experience now, man, for these kids, because they've got a wealth of material to draw from, and we just didn't have that. So
where do you start, you know, nowadays? I mean...
Right. Like, if you'd never watched Star Wars, I mean, obviously, if you were using your head, you would start with episode 4, but by this time, you've grown up around it. You may not have grown with it, but it's become so ingrained in our pop culture, man. Star Wars is who we are. And, you know, I don't know if it's like that in every country. I'm sure there's plenty of countries enamored with Star Wars like we are. But, man, especially in America, it's you know, dude, just like it's who we are. I mean, it's a brand. It's a brand. It's just like Coke. I mean, it's a brand. You know what I mean? It's just like something that you're used to. You see it on billboards, on magazine covers. You hear people using the words like lightsabers and the Force and Vader, and you hear those things just thrown around in casual conversation. They don't even have to be talking about Star Wars. But anytime you ever hear a grown man call another dude kid, who might be younger than him, I call my son kid all the time. Automatically think of Han. It's like I said, man, it's just in our pop culture, for sure. But as you said, Ben Kenobi is still with Luke. He's like his ghostly guardian angel, yes? And
I like that.
Well, hey, you know, call it for what it is. Again, folks, we didn't know what a Force ghost was. We just knew that Ben Kenobi was dead and his spirit was kind of hanging around, haunting Luke. That's all. That's what we called it, right? Because we didn't know any better. So everything gets labeled later. Well, there's a Force ghost. We're like, what? Really? Okay, cool. I didn't know that. So, yeah, but it is what it is. It's among these scenes in the opening of the film that we start to get the romantic tension between Han Solo and Princess Leia, and holy cow, this stuff jumps off the screen. These two were hot for each other. We know that Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher had a thing. I'll always be jealous of Harrison Ford to the day I'm dead because of that, and I hate him for it for that for sure, because I'm still a Carrie Fisher guy, right? But man, dude, talk about the romantic and sexual tension between these two right from the jump of this film.
Yeah, we saw some of it in the first episode, A New Hope, and it just got, so much more. They got so much more involved in this film, and it was funny to hear them going back and forth. Han's trying to get Leia to admit that there's something going on between them, but she's got this guard up. She doesn't want to admit anything, and Han, he's all in. He's ready to kiss her, but she's just really being shrewish, I guess you could say, and it's so hilarious to listen to their dialogue going back and forth. I mean, Han, he gets a smile on his face at one point. It's funny.
Yeah, because like you said, she's got her guard up. Here's what I find interesting. If it has legit been 3 years in their time between the events of the first Star Wars and this film, that means that this sexual tension has been building for 3 years between these two. And which means she's not let her guard down one time. And he's comfortable as can be sort of pressing the issue. And why wouldn't he be? Because for 3 years he has worked his way under her skin and gotten it to the point where he can see that she's fallen for him. He's not an idiot. He sees it in her eyes. She fights him, obviously, but he can see this from a mile away. So yeah, of course he's going to, like I said, he's going to press the issue. Dude, I don't, listen, she might turn me down 6 ways from Sunday, but it wouldn't have took me 3 years. I would have got a straight up no, or a punch in the face or something, or a yes, with any luck, a yes. But man, like you said, dude, she definitely had her guard up with Han, but we all know how that turned out in this film and then later on as well. How are you feeling at this moment? I don't know if I can get you to flash back as a kid. That's a tall order for any of us, right? But man, looking back on it, at this point were you like, these are right where these characters should be. This is perfect for them. And we're 15 minutes into the film, but we're already right where they should be. Do you know what I mean? Oh,
yeah. I couldn't agree more. I mean, yeah, it's just Han and Leia doing, continuing on from where they left off. And it's just, it's grown even more from, the 3 years in between. And yeah, Han has been in hot pursuit, and Leia has been shutting the door, slamming the door in his face each and every time. But secretly, she's got to be, wanting to give in, but for some reason, she's just, the time has not come yet.
Because she's strong, man. She's strong-willed, and being romantic is a sign of weakness in her mind. That's probably not how she was raised, and it's not who she is, not who she wants to be. She wants to be tough. She doesn't want to show that weakness. She doesn't want to show that soft side, because to her, it's her power's gone. She's giving up control to someone else, and she can't do that. It's not in her best interest, not what she wants to do. She wants to be in control all the time. And, dude, love's not like that. It's a give and take, right? So, yeah, until she gave in a little bit and let Han kind of in the door, yeah, this thing was never going to materialize. So we see the relationships between the 3 characters. The main trio, the holy trinity of Star Wars, is back in full effect. We see the vision, of course, as we said, of Ben Kenobi in the snow, and he's telling Luke he has to go to the Dagobah system and train with some cat named Yoda. We'd never heard of Yoda, didn't know who he was, didn't know what to expect. And I can't remember if Yoda was even seen in the previews. I want to say they kept him secret as long as they could. So you didn't actually get a glimpse of him until you went to see the movie, which is a good thing, because as we will find out later in this film, one wrong move and this thing could have been a Muppet and that was it. But they brought him to life, and it was believable and it was funny, but it was serious at the same time. And I don't know what you expected when the Yoda's name was first mentioned, but I did not expect what we got at all.
No, I didn't either. I mean, I was expecting this, a natural, tall, like human being or something to that effect. I know I did not expect what we got. It was, that was one of the surprises of this film. And the way it turned out, it was great. I couldn't have asked for anything else after it was all over and said and done.
So among these first scenes in the opening of the film, we see Vader for the first time. Vader's a lot shinier than he was in episode 4. And there's been a lot written over the years online about the differences between his armor, his suit, his helmet. But man, he's shiny in part 2, man. He's real shiny when Jedi comes around. So yeah, Lucas got a little bit more money this time around, I guess. Got a great big can of shoe polish and polished that helmet up. But man, he looks great, right?
I have to admit, I wasn't even thinking about that until you mentioned it. But yeah, from episode 4 to this one, yeah, you can definitely see a glare there. I mean, he's shining. He's like he's been buffed or something. Right,
exactly. And I don't want to jump too far ahead to Jedi, but remember the scene where the Emperor shows up on the newly rebuilt the new Death Star number 2, I guess you could say, and the floors are that black. They're that shiny black, and you're like, God, how did they pull that off? Like that just looks amazing. So. Yeah, the Empire is all about, clean, crisp, tight edges and that solid colors. And, like we pointed out in episode 4, man, it's a very, Nazi culture that's going on in the Empire, man. It's some scary stuff for sure. So
yeah, very uniform and, straight edge, I guess you could say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So before we leave Hoth, we get into a little tussle. The Empire's figured out, well, here they are. And of course we lose an admiral because of it, because Vader force chokes him. Again, we didn't know what that was called. We just said, Darth Vader rose his hand and somehow that dude choked to death. And we didn't know what that meant. But later on, it's a force choke. Well, good to know. I wonder if a Jedi goes to the restroom, if it's considered like a forced bowel movement. What is that called? Like everything they do is force this and force that. What are you doing? I'm going to force open this door. I'm going to force put on my boots. I don't know. I don't make too much
force
fun.
Everything.
Force everything. Good God. Just let things happen on their own time. I don't know. Why force it?
Vader chokes the first of many in this film. And, after a certain period, I'm sitting there thinking, is he going to kill them all? I mean, is there going to be anybody left in the Empire? Is this going to be Vader and the Emperor?
Yeah, Vader don't suffer no fools, kids, at all. So... Dude, wasn't it the Family Guy takeoff of the Star Wars universe, or I forget who it was, that it was revealed that Vader wasn't killing anyone. He couldn't really force choke anyone. It was all a scam. And whenever he started doing it, the guy in question just fell down like he was choking. They would carry him off and then put him like a fake mustache on him and bring him back at the next meeting. And he was like another general that Vader didn't know who he was. And they were just like trying to pamper his ego or something. I want to say that was Family Guy, but I cannot swear to it, man. So the Family Guy people did a great job of the Star Wars takeoff or tribute, I should say. So that was pretty fun as well. So yes, we get the fight on Hoth. The Empire is there for the first time. We get to see the AT-AT walkers. They're cool. We saw a variation of it later in the new Disney trilogy. They were more along the lines of a gorilla. I think they actually call them the gorilla walkers or something of that nature. But this is the first time we ever get to see the AT-ATs. Man, how cool is this? First time we get to see snow speeders. And we're already, less than 30 minutes in this film, we're already getting some laser, it's a good old-fashioned laser fighting here with the snow speeders. Man, how cool was this scene?
Oh, it was awesome. The walkers, man, they were, up to the sky. How high were they? It was intimidating. And how do you fight these things? Because you're flying along in your little small spaceship, and who else but Luke would think of doing what they did? And I want to say that the walkers also remind me of like these metal robotic dinosaurs too.
Dude, you know what? I, honest to God, never even thought about that. No, dude, what a great point. Yeah, they're like mechanical dinosaurs. That's freaking awesome, man. But yeah, it takes the rebels a little bit, but they actually make work of these things. They take them down. Luke has, like Greg said, an ingenious method. They wrap cables around the legs. And listen, I don't care how big you are. If you can't walk, you're going to go down. Okay, so something trips you up, you're going to take a face plant on the ground. That's exactly what these things did. Luke saved the day as only he could. And in the midst of all this, Leia's refusing to leave. Leia is committed to the cause to the very end. She was going to stay there and let that place cave in on her because she was committed to her troops to make sure that there's somehow they could win this battle when it was obvious that they were not going to be able to completely win this, that the Empire had breached their defenses. It was over. They had to get out. So Han grabs and says, let's go. We got to get you to your cruiser, to your ship. Well, the way is blocked off. And before this scene takes place, talk about the sexual tension. They actually shared a kiss in the hallway. So things have been cooking, man, and they're starting to get on fire between these two. But Han does what Han does, man. He saves her life and takes her aboard the Falcon with him and Chewie.
Yeah, it just shows how much Leia means to him. You know, as rather before, you know, he said, I think he said something in a heat of passion moment. He says, you know, I don't know if I want to kill her or, you know, if I'm falling in love with her. But yeah, and I mean, they share a kiss, like you said, and C-3PO interrupts, and Han, you know, he's seething. Yeah, I think he wants to tear C-3PO apart at that point.
As always. And because I remember Han said something effective, thanks a lot. 3PO goes, oh, you're quite welcome. Like he had no idea. He had no idea they'd screwed up. So you can't expect a droid to understand human emotions, kids. It's just impossible. Although they did a great job with 3PO. I can't. He's the comic relief. I mean, he and R2 are they're the Laurel and Hardy, the Abbott and Costello of these movies. They're the comic relief. They're great. They're part of the family as well, man. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I thought C-3PO and Han had great comic relief in this one. You know, C-3PO, like you said, was, you know, just going along about his business, and you know, he would just talk and get on Han's nerves, and Han was like, you know, like somebody shut him up.
Oh, yeah, well, such great stuff, because as we know, R2 actually went with Luke. Luke says, all right, I'm going to Dagobah. I'm going to do what Ben told me. I'm going to do what the dead Jedi guy told me. The creepy ghost Jedi dude. And I'm going to go to Dagobah and learn from this cat named Yoda, right? And so he takes R2 with him, because an R2 unit is usually always placed inside of an X-Wing. And its responsibilities for communications, for navigation, for making any repairs that happen to the X-Wing, any that it's capable of making, for speaking the language of whatever the computer system they come into contact with, whatever the language they come into contact with, it can translate, all this other stuff. I mean, 3PO is the translator, but an R2 unit can decipher a code and get its way into just about anywhere, as we see several times in the course of these movies, and especially in this one. And yeah, the team's broken up. And you know, it only makes sense to split them up. You can't... I'm trying to remember the next time we actually see all of this cast together at the same time. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's aboard the stolen Imperial cruiser in Jedi, where they're on their way to Endor. I think it's the next time we see them all together in the same place. Well... Yeah,
I believe you're right.
I could be wrong. We see them together when Luke goes to rescue Han from Jabba. But I can't say they were all... Okay, on the desert skiff on the barge, they were all together at the same time. I guess, yeah, I believe so. But look how long it took, folks. I mean, it took that long to get them all in the same place at the same time, because the story was moving in different directions, and all these characters were going their own separate ways, or fighting their own fights and then coming back together when the time called for it. So...
And it made for a great reunion in Jedi, too. I mean, absence makes the heart grow fonder, as they say.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, and the fans had to be clamoring for it, you know. And when it happened, it was great. It was awesome.
Oh, and man, we're going to get there. We're going to get there with Jedi. We're going to do Jedi. I promise you. You know we are. We promise the audience we are going to. No doubt about it. But, you know, talk about characters' evolution. Don't even get me started on how different Luke is in Jedi compared to this film alone. Crazy. But we're still on Empire. No worries. We haven't gone anywhere yet. So basically, the Empire is catching up to Han. And this thing's starting to get serious. Vader wants him. And they're going to do all they can to get away from the Empire. And this brings about just a great chase sequence in space. And they have to improvise. Han has to improvise. They have to do something. And they hide an asteroid field. The ship's hyperdrive is screwed up because it's the Falcon, and of course it is, okay? But they hide an asteroid field. And Han and Leia, again, we talk about the romantic tension between these two. And it's growing even thicker. We flip back, we see bounty hunters summoned by Vader. they're aboard the Falcon. It's the first time we get a look at Boba Fett, who becomes one of the most iconic figures in the history of the Star Wars universe. Dude, did Boba Fett jump out at you like he did to me and pretty much everybody the first time you laid eyes on him? How cool did this guy look?
Oh yeah, the armor, the gun and everything. I didn't really know if it was a man inside there. I thought maybe it was a robot, kind of like the stormtroopers. But years later, of course, I found out different. But yeah, just the design and everything, the color. This guy was, he was pretty cool. He was sweet.
Absolutely, yeah. So as we said, the Falcon's going through an asteroid field. They end up hiding, of all places, and we didn't know this at the time, but they ended up hiding inside of a creature. First of all, Leia's warning him. It's like, what, you're going to go through an asteroid field? And he's like, of course we are. I think they're going to follow us. And the TIE fighters that did follow them made terrible mistake by doing so. And somehow they ended up down the gullet of this, I guess, worm in an asteroid. And we didn't see that coming. I remember actually seeing that part of the film being like, oh my God, they're inside of a creature. How cool was that, man? They fly out, the teeth are closing. Ah, such good stuff.
The cave is collapsing, and Han says, this is no cave, honey.
Yeah, like he's just out of nowhere. And you're like, oh my God, it's an animal of some sort. And then boom, he almost had them right there. So, but of course our heroes escape. And as we said before, Vader's got some bounty hunters on board not the Death Star, but on his Imperial cruiser. On his Star Destroyer, excuse me, yes. By the way, is there a cooler name for a ship than Star Destroyer? I mean, come on. Are you kidding me? Millennium Falcon's pretty friggin' cool. There's so much stuff in these films. X-Wing fighter, TIE fighter, Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I love the design of the TIE fighters too, man. Another cool part of the culture. When you got the toy in your hand, man, it was like, that was awesome.
Oh my God, the TIE fighters were fun to play with, man. Vader's TIE fighter was a bit different. We know that the side panels were not vertical; they actually curved in on themselves. So his TIE was a little bit different. We found that out from the toys, kids, and also from the movie as well, of course. A lot of this stuff has just become part of our pop culture, man, that we talk about all the time and reference it, and people from all walks of life know it. So yeah, it's good stuff. So yes, we get our first view of the bounty hunters. Boba Fett looks freaking awesome. He's going to become a top story in this universe for years to come, obviously. Around this time, we see Luke taking R2, and he's getting to Dagobah. And Dagobah, he crash lands, and this is where we first meet Yoda. And dude, I knew from the second he opened his mouth that that's Fozzie Bear. I knew it was. I had no doubt in my mind. This is before I ever saw the name Frank Oz. And when I saw the name Frank Oz, I was like, oh, I was right after all. That's Fozzie Bear. So did you know right away who was voicing this character?
No, I mean, it didn't really occur to me. I was so young, and I mean, I think I had seen the Muppets at that point, but I just didn't make the connection. I thought, I was listening to him, and I was like, man, it's a funny character, because he was going back and forth with R2, they were trying to, I think he had a little flashlight or something. He was,
yes.
He thought it was neat, and he was like, mine, and he's wrapping him with his cane. So I mean, that's hilarious.
Oh, it was so good. And he's like, he tastes some of Luke's food, and he's like, how did you get so big eating crap like this, basically? And and it's so cool because he takes Luke into like his little hut, his little dwelling, and he's cooking for him. Like he really wants him to eat. He's like, this will be good. Just put hair on your chest. He didn't say that, but wouldn't it be cool if he had? So he cooks for him, and of course it's wretched, it's rancid, according to the expression Luke has on his face, yes. And because Yoda initially told him, I'll take you to him. He's like, Yoda? I'll take you to him, I will. That kind of stuff. So he gets him in there, and suddenly, and Luke's not, he won't be still, he wants to, we're wasting our time, all this other stuff. He's an impatient kid. I got one at home. They're impatient, man. They don't want to wait till tomorrow. They want it right now. So that's when he starts talking out loud, and Luke can hear Ben's voice. I'm like, crap, there's the creepy old ghost dude. He's back. Again, kids, we didn't know Force Ghost. So anyway, I'm not going to die on that hill. I'm just trying to make a point. That's all. So we get the Force Ghost. We get Ben back in the picture, and then you come to realize, holy crap, this is Yoda. And now I'll ask you this. Did you know it was Yoda? I mean, they didn't tell us that at all in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, I can't remember the first time I saw it, but I mean, I guess I took, when Luke said, Yoda, I took Luke's word for it because Luke's the hero of the movie, and I wanted him to succeed and everything. Got behind this guy. And I was like, when he said Yoda, I was like, wait a minute, I can't believe this is Yoda. I was expecting so much more. And I mean, of course, everybody was. So again, this was a big revelation, and it turned out to be a really nice one, I thought.
Yeah, man, the dynamic between Luke and Yoda is crazy good, and Yoda essentially becomes his master. He, we see that great scene of Luke running through. It's like that old Creedence song, "Run Through the Jungle," right? You could play that song over this scene, man. He's got Yoda on his back, and Yoda's like talking to him and stuff and instructing him. And, Yoda's got the easy part. Of course, he's 900 years old, according to him. So, it's all good. But Tom Clark's 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark's 6M podcast sent you. Yeah, man, this is the first time we actually see Luke having to earn this stuff. It's like the military. You can't just pick up a lightsaber and call yourself a Jedi. You can't just pick up a gun and call yourself a soldier. You got to go through basic training, which is what he's doing here. It's
I'm glad
great.
you said that because that's exactly what I was thinking. And you just made reference to CCR, Run Through the Jungle, like it's been used in war movies, like Vietnam and stuff. So how appropriate, right?
Oh, man. Great point, dude. Another great callback for sure. Yeah, it fits. It just definitely fits. And like we said, we see Luke having to earn this stuff, man. And, keep in mind, folks, we didn't know who Luke's daddy was yet. We don't find out till later. So we didn't know that he even had a leg up to begin with. Had no clue. So to us, he was still that farm boy who was trying to learn about the Force. We didn't know that he had the blood of the most powerful Sith Lord ever in the history of the galaxy running through his veins. I mean, that's, yikes, that's a big deal. But that'll come later. We'll get there.
Talk about how powerful Yoda is. He tells Ben's Force Ghost that he's been watching this kid from a distance, and he already knows about Luke. What he's been through. He says he's always been looking forward, not focusing on what he was doing in the present. At the time. So yeah, he knows that Luke is his mind is elsewhere. He wants to be, have adventures, and he says that's not what a Jedi does, though. That's not a Jedi.
Dude, I'm so glad you brought that up because I rewatched Empire this morning. I'm watching it again right now, and the moment where he said exactly what you're talking about, that scene, it specifically, when he said that, watching you I have, or however it was he said it, and I'm like, you just hear this dialogue so much in your life, sometimes it kind of gets lost on you. You're right. He had been watching him for a long time. And go back and think about that. Yeah, he had been observing, like the Watcher in Marvel Comics, right? He'd been watching the whole time. And yeah, what a great little tidbit that was that I'd actually forgotten about. I popped off that when I saw it this morning. Yeah, to know that he had been observing his life for a while because, well, let's face it, he knew who he was. He already knew. He knew that Ben had the twins and took them and hid them from Vader. He already knew this, but he was playing dumb,
Yeah, but at the time we didn't know, which was the, I guess the good thing about it.
Yeah, dude, who wants to go to a film and have the ending before they ever walk in? I don't want to know anything. Like, one of my biggest complaints with trailers these days is that you get the entire film in the trailer. I hate it. It's really bad it's really bad on Netflix, by the way. So.
Yeah, I'm like you. I don't want to see anything. I want to go and be surprised. I want to be shocked. I want to, see everything for myself.
Absolutely, man. Like if there's a surprise to be had, I want to be surprised. If there's something sad, I want to get emotional. If there's something great, I want to cheer. But I don't want to be told when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen, who it's going to happen to. That ruins it for me. I don't want that. I like I said, I just want to go along for the thrill ride, which is what exactly this movie is, and all these movies actually. So yeah, I didn't want anything to do with it, but dude, I love that point that you made about, Yoda has been watching for a long time, and he's just as connected to this story as Luke is, and we don't know that. Like you said, we don't know that yet. We find it out later. But yeah, like we said, man, Luke has to earn his stripes. He has to train. He has to get his body where it needs to be, get his mind where it needs to be. And we get that great scene where he walks into the tree and Yoda warns him, this tree is strong with the dark side of the Force. It just happens to be there, which is weird. But, he's like, your weapons, leave them here. You won't need them. He's like, what's in there? He said, only what you take with you. Well, Luke took his weapon, which means he was on edge. He was expecting danger. He took that with him, and danger found him. And, when Luke, it was actually Vader. Luke beheads him. And you're watching this for the first time going, dude, he cut his head off. Like, okay. And of course, it's not Vader. Who is it in the mask?
It's Luke himself. And at that point, watching it as a 5-year-old kid, I was totally confused, man, because I didn't have the mindset to, think about, foreshadowing, what would come later. I was just like, what's going on here? How can that be Luke when he's, standing there? I mean, I was really, befuddled.
Yeah, good point, man. It's hard to understand what's going on when you're that age, and hard to piece all this stuff together, no doubt. So, again, folks, we've got this thing with Luke, and in the meantime, we're bouncing back and forth between the scenes of Luke and Yoda on Dagobah, and then we're back to the Falcon. And basically, Han and Leia and crew are just trying to stay alive. They discover they're in the worm. They get their way out of the worm. And they run right back into the Empire again, who's kind of been hanging around outside the asteroid field waiting for them. And so Han has this crazy idea. He's like, this is the only thing we can do. He goes straight for one of the Star Destroyers, and suddenly he's gone. And they disappear from the radar. The Imperials can't find them. Where'd they go, right? And then we see the cameras pull back, and we see the Millennium Falcon is actually sitting on the side of the Star Destroyer. It's attached itself to the ship and turned itself off. So the Empire has no idea that they're right there.
Yeah, and he even gets a kiss out of the deal from Leia. She says, you have your moments. I mean, just out of nowhere, Han comes up with this, spur-of-the-moment plan. It's like, well, I'm just going to take the Falcon and go underneath there and attach to the belly of the destroyer. Yeah, I mean, who else but Han, right?
Yeah, dude, and she kisses him on the cheek, and it's a good kiss, too, all right? Any kiss from Princess Leia is a good kiss. That's the truth. But she gives him a good one. He no-sells it. He doesn't even look at her. He just keeps looking forward. I'm like, she's giving you what you want, dude. What's going on? But, I mean, again, that goes back to Han's confidence, right? He kind of already knows she's got a thing for him, so he knows it's all good. So, yeah, what a great moment. And then his reasoning is that the Empire will eventually, let go of their garbage or whatever, mechanical things they let go of. Waste, I guess, is a nice way to put it. And he's like, when that happens, we'll just float along with the debris and then take off. Well, he does exactly that, except we see Slave One, Boba Fett, fires up.
Yeah.
He had the same idea.
Yeah, I mean, Boba Fett was there on target, almost like he, knew what was going to happen. Like, almost like he was a Jedi or something using the Force. But, yeah, this is a really smart guy. He's ready for anything.
You know what's funny, too, is that what happened to the rest of the bounty hunters?
That's true. I didn't think about that. I mean, Boba Fett stood out, and the rest of them, faded away. Yeah,
like Vader has that meeting with them on the bridge, and he's talking to them. And he's like, bring them back and all this stuff. And Boba's like, he's nothing. Got to have him alive and all this stuff. Don't kill him and all this other stuff they're talking about. And I guess after that it was like, and break. And all the bounty hunters split and got to their own personal ships and took off to God knows where, with no leads, by the way. There's no leads to find this guy, to find Han. And Boba's just like, you know what? I think I'm going to hang back. I'm going to hang back, get in my ship, hang out, see what I can see. Who knows? Maybe they'll just come back around their own. And they totally did. Meanwhile, the other bounty hunter's going, jerk. You hang around here for? He's not going to come back. He's not an idiot. This guy's a loser. Let's get out of here. And like I said, they go off to God knows where. I want to see that story. I want to see these bounty hunter stories of they went to these other planets trying to find them, and he's got to be around here somewhere, dude. I mean, that's like a comedy comic book just waiting to happen, man.
Yeah, definitely.
I love that stuff. So yeah, we know Boba Fett's the man. He's meant to catch this guy, and we'll find that out later. So during Luke's training, he starts having visions, and this is around the same time that Han decides, we got to go somewhere. We got to get safe. We got to regroup. We got to get away from the Empire as far as we can. And we got to figure out what our next move is. And he sees on the scanners, he sees on the system that Bespin, the Bespin system, Cloud City, is around, and he knows who's there. And he tells Leia, it's an old friend of mine, Lando Calrissian. He's administrator there. He'll take us in, give us shelter. So they're on their way there. They get there, and around this time, Luke is having visions, and he's hearing things in his head. And he tells Yoda they're in pain, they're in danger, and Yoda basically tells him, "Yeah, you're right. It's going to go down. They're probably going to get hurt." And I'm like, then he tells him, "You can't go. What are you going to go? You can't change it. Don't go. It's a stupid move." Dude, I'm sorry. I get the logic behind that because Jedi is supposed to not act recklessly and not supposed to, supposed to take his time and take all things into consideration and be careful. Dude, if I'm Luke, I'm gone. I have to, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm doing exactly what Luke does because I can't sit back and watch friends suffer or maybe even die. I mean, I've got to do everything I can to try and save them. Because, like we said, they're like a family now, a close-knit family. I mean, Luke's the type of character, he's not going to just sit back and do nothing.
Right, yeah. And he's got to do, like you said, he's got to do the right thing. He's got to go help his friends. Like I said, man, they're his family at this point. They are. And keep this in mind, too, people, that Luke doesn't have a family. His family's gone. No parents that he knows of. His aunt and uncle are gone, long gone. No brothers or sisters that he knows of. So all he's got are these people that he's been hanging out with for 3 years. This is his family. So yeah, like I said, man, I'm not staying. I'm gone. And he even tells Yoda, he says, "I'll be back, I promise." And like in the very end, before he takes off, Ben's ghost is showing up. It's like, dude, it's a bad idea. What are you, crazy? You can't fight Vader. And he's like, Zoda's like, "You're not ready." And he's like, "I'm getting out of here. Screw this." And it's funny because as he's getting aboard the X-Wing, they're both like yelling advice at the last minute. It's like, "Listen, if you're going to go, you got to be careful. This dude's crazy." They're yelling all this stuff to him. And it's not, looking back on it, it wasn't funny at the time, but it's kind of like, instead of Yoda, kind of being a D-bag to him and fussing at him, he was kind of like, you could see that he cares enough to say, "Look, trust your feelings, be careful, watch it." I think that's like an overlooked moment of this film. I still find that film pretty cool to watch. Very compelling moment there.
Yeah, I mean, when they figure out that they can't prevent Luke from, going to try and save his friends in Cloud City, they're at least going to encourage him, and give him some last second advice, some spot of wisdom or something.
Yes, and when Luke's X-Wing takes off and Ben says, "This boy is our last hope," and you hear Yoda say, "No, there is another." This is the first time that I think in this film where we got some foreshadowing that led us to believe, wait a minute, did he say there's another what? Is there another Jedi? What is he talking about? Little did we know that Leia is the one he's talking about. We didn't know. And yeah, so again, foreshadowing, kids. It's fun stuff, fun device, plot device for sure. So we have Han and company arrive in Bespin, the Bespin system in Cloud City. And also we flash to Vader, and for the first time we get to see the Emperor. He's, of course, aboard a Star Destroyer. We get to see him talking to the Emperor. Now, in the specialized editions, and of course by specialized, we're talking about the ones with the hoo-ha and the hocus pocus and the CG and all that stuff that Lucas just insisted on releasing and all that crap. I'm sorry, I still have an issue with it, man. It's my grudge, it's my cross to bear. I just can't help it. But in the original version, we saw Vader talking to the Emperor, but it was an actor in the hood. Remember, in the cloak, you couldn't really see his face. You could see his nose and his mouth, and that was it. But in the specialized edition, we see Ian McDiarmid, who played the Emperor, beginning in Return of the Jedi from that point on. So Yeah, if all you know is the specialized edition, you're getting that edition, that version. But in the original, like I said, he was just cloaked in darkness. Dude, this is the first time we get the sense, and well, not just sense, but proof. Vader's not the top dog. He's not the top boss, man. There's another big time heel. Vader's just his errand boy. I don't know if we thought that way at the time. But dude, turns out Vader's second in command. What a crazy twist that is.
Really hard to believe because Vader, is everybody's afraid of him, and just from that you think that he is king, but yeah, you find out that he answers to higher power. And when you see the Emperor, like it's kind of like the holographic image, I think it's a nice touch that you can't see all of them. Just keep it a mystery until Jedi. It turned out fantastic in my opinion. And you hear the voice, and it's a creepy sounding voice, so it sets the tone for what's to come, later on.
Yes, good. Oh, it's good stuff. There's so many great impressions of that guy from Jedi because he's in that chair just cackling like an old lady. It's good stuff. So yeah, man. For the first time, like I said, we find out that Vader's second in command essentially, and man, that was a big moment. Again, dude, I think it's one of the moments of that film that's overlooked. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Star Wars fan base does take that seriously and does make it out to be a big deal. I didn't, but looking back on it, wow, what a huge thing that is.
I know it was like Yoda, like you finding out who Yoda was and what he looked like. Again, you have another big revelation, and the Emperor and Yoda were like, they were opposites. As we find out from the rest of the Star Wars genre, I mean, they were like yin and yang, I guess you could say.
Oh yeah, good way to put it too. So on the Bespin system, we get to meet for the first time Mr. Billy D. Williams as Lando Calrissian. I don't have many impressions, but I got Billy D, okay? May not be perfect. I'm working on it. It's a work in progress, okay? So yeah, we get to see Lando for the first time. Without question, the smoothest character in the history of the Star Wars story. For sure. No doubt about it. If you're not a Billy D. Williams fan, you don't have a soul. Now we get a glimpse of something we've never seen before as well. Han's checkered past. We know he was a smuggler. We know he and Chewie were outlaws, but that's kind of all we ever knew. We knew he had a bounty on his head for something that we don't know why. We never understood why. I don't think it was explained to that point why he even had a price on his head. But supposedly he was transporting cargo later on. I guess we kind of put it together. He was transporting cargo for Jabba, I believe, and he got boarded. In Star Wars Episode 4, he said, even I got boarded sometimes. You think I had a choice? So yeah, so Jabba's, pissed at him. He's got the bounty on his head. But now we see someone from Han's past. Lando. Dude, how did Lando hit you the first time you saw him? What were you thinking?
I was thinking, man, this guy is so slick and smooth. How could you not like him?
Right.
But there was I don't know, for some reason, you kind of don't trust a person like that. He's always smiling and he's so nice and, it's just something mysterious about him. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, a really cool guy to hang out with, you'd think. And, I mean, when he acts like he's going to take a swing at Han, you're like, whoa, wait a minute. And then, he hugs him and he's laughing. He says, hey, old buddy,
Yeah, he calls him a pirate, I think, right? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah, they're bros, man. And we don't find out till the Solo film, much later on. But yeah, they're bros. They got a huge history together. And Billy D's great in this film. All the cast is great. Billy D's exceptionally great. And a couple different things about the character is that it's not Chewbacca, it's Chewbacca. Calls him Chewbacca. And it's not Han, it's Han. We got to find Han. And supposedly they never corrected him. They just let him say it that way, both characters' names, which I find awesome. Because, how do you correct Billy D. Williams? Like you said, he's smooth as silk. Dude, he's a natural on camera. I'll tell you this. I can't say when I first saw this as a kid as well, and in subsequent viewings after that, I can't say that I knew like you did, because his charm wins you over like Han, right? But I did kind of feel like you said, he's a little too nice, right? He's a little too smooth. He's a little bit too charming. And it's that kind of thing that makes you think, God, it's like, yeah, I don't know how I feel about this.
I love the fact that he's trying to woo Leia. Leia's with Han. How does Lando not know that Leia's with Han? And it's almost like, is he trying to steal her away or something there? Part of his character.
Yes, absolutely. Well, he can't help himself. That's like Han can't help himself from, in the beginning, hitting on Leia. It's kind of who he is. And I guess, Billy Dee's sort of in the same vein for sure. So yeah, he was, as I said, man, pitch perfect. Love this guy. Turns out you couldn't trust him because he did some bad stuff later. Stuff we didn't even know about was going on. So Luke's on his way. He knows something's up. And by this point in time, we know what the up is. 3PO disappears early on when they get to Bespin, to Cloud City. He disappears early on. Apparently, he gets sidetracked. He goes through a door. And before we know it, he's blown to pieces. He recognized who did it, but we didn't get to see it. So a nice little mystery that's kind of left dangling there. Chewbacca finds him in pieces and going to be melted down by creatures that we later learn are called Ugnaughts. And these guys they're like the worker bees for the Empire, whoever that they're working for at the time. And they actually try to play keep away with 3PO's head. And Chewbacca, being an 8-foot tall Wookiee, actually pieces the droid back together. And by that time, it's too late because we get the most famous betrayal. I don't know if there's another famous betrayal in the Star Wars universe that beats this one, because Lando is not what he professes to be. He said that he's finalized a deal to ensure the Empire never gets in his way and never gets into his affairs again. The doors slide open, and who's at the end of the long dinner table but the big bad himself? Lord Vader. Dude, talk to me about that scene.
Oh, yeah, I was shocked to the foundations. Like I said, I kind of didn't trust Lando, but that didn't mean that I thought that he, had made a deal with the devil, so to speak. This was the betrayal to end all betrayals. These guys are, old buddies, old pals, and, and then when Lando explains, he said he had no choice. So then you kind of thought, well, I don't know, maybe he's got a point, but still, to kind of sell your friend out there, yeah, it's hard to come back from that.
I was going to ask you about your take on this. Put yourself in Lando's shoes, okay? The Empire shows up, not just the Empire, the big bad from the Empire that can do the force choking thing from across the room and kill you, okay? He shows up and says, look, we know Han's coming, and here's what I want you to do. Dude, you're Lando. What else do you say except, all right, you got a deal? What else do you say at that point? You kind of have to, right?
Yeah, if you don't, you're going to sacrifice yourself and your everything you've worked for there in Cloud City. All those lives. You pretty much have to go along with what Vader wants at that point, even though you don't want to.
Yeah, not for nothing, man, but Lando had a facility full of people who were depending on him for their livelihoods. That's a good point, dude. All those lives lost had he said no to Vader and the Empire. And for years we made the joke about, at least I did, about what were they mining in Cloud City, a city suspended in the air. What can you possibly be mining? Well, turns out, fact nugget time, Cloud City was extracting valuable Tabana gas from the depths of the giant planet. But it also served as a sanctuary for those trying to escape the turmoil gripping the galaxy. So basically, if you just want to get away from it all, and you just wanted a simple job in an exotic location, away from the fighting in the Civil War, I imagine that's how the infomercial advertising, a timeshare in Cloud City would have been. Are you tired of the galactic Civil War? We've got a place for you.
Don't forget the amazing view that you'll have as well.
Oh my God, great point. You can't beat the views in Cloud City. Dude, Dollars to Donuts says that there's something like that on YouTube right now. Kids, go put in your Google machine and look it up. I guarantee you'll find something. And if not, maybe we'll do it because it sounds hilarious. So yeah, the ultimate betrayal. Han is rigged up. He's strapped into this torture device. They're blasting Chewie with these sonic waves, I guess you could say, this high-pitched squeal that apparently is not only dangerous for humans, but apparently is pure torture for a Wookiee. And all of his hair is like standing straight up. It's frightening. Dude, I was in tears when this happened because Chewbacca's my man. You know what I mean? Like, couldn't take watching this.
Really, really lovable character. And, it's one of the first times you see him in any kind of pain and agony. And, it's just like you really feel for the big guy there, the big hairy guy.
Yes, and at this point, we don't know what's happened to Leia. We see her in a bit, but we don't know what's happened to her yet. For all we know, she could be dead. Honestly, we have no idea. Vader was after her in the first Star Wars, right? So who knows what he did to her. So Chewie and Han are eventually reunited, and Lando comes in, basically says they didn't have a choice. No one believes him. Of course they don't. And it's at this point that Lando and Vader start having issues. He's not agreeing. He doesn't like where this thing's going. So the deal's getting worse and worse every second, and it's not going the way he thought it would. He thought that if he did this, if he turned Han over to them, that they would not kill him for one, which Vader swore they wouldn't kill him, said he wouldn't kill him, but that also that Leia and Chewbacca could stay there as his guests, and he would be sure nothing happens to him. That was the deal. Vader changed the deal. Pray I don't alter it further, he says. And the unthinkable happens to Han. Han and Leia are separated for another, I don't know how long between Empire and Jedi, but let's say it's another 3 years. They're separated. Han is put into deep sleep in the frozen carbonite. Dude, this was a deal breaker for me because if I'm a Chewbacca guy, right? I mean, I'm definitely a Han Solo guy. He was my absolute hero as a kid, for sure. And now he's getting frozen. Man, did you think he was dead when this happened?
I did. I mean, and it really scared me because Han had become, one of the most likable characters in Star Wars. And, just to see him frozen in carbonite and then the slab slams down to the ground is like it's salt in the wound. And you can look at Leia, and it's heartbreaking, the expression on her face. She thinks he's dead at that point too, and she just right before he was frozen, she finally said the words "I love you," and he says "I know." So they finally getting together, and then he's being taken away from her. It's just tugging at the heartstrings, man.
Oh, of course, and famous story. We all know this story by now. But the director, Irvin Kershner, the line that originally was, Han was supposed to say, "I love you too." And when it came time to read the line, Harrison Ford said Han Solo would never say this to Princess Leia. There's no chance. This is not who he is. So they tried a few different lines. Nothing was working. And basically, Irvin Kershner told Harrison Ford, look, we're just going to roll camera. You say whatever comes to your mind, whatever you feel like he would say. And of course, Harrison Ford says, "I know." And it's perfect. And it fits, and all these years later, it's still an iconic moment in the history of these characters. But yeah, what a tragic moment. As we find out in the scene itself, Lando's there. He says he's asleep. He's fine. He's in perfect hibernation. And 3PO even says, he's actually going to be quite protected in there. Like he'll be okay. So the big question now becomes, first of all, where's Jabba the Hutt? Because we know that's where they're taking him. Boba Fett's shown his ugly mug, so we know he's up to no good. He's going to collect the bounty. So they're going to take off with him. And it's about this time that Luke has gotten there. He sees them being led away in the corridors, and finally Lando decides to do the right thing, and he turns on the deal himself and helps Chewbacca and Leia escape aboard the Falcon.
Yeah, I love the scene where Luke's trying to peek around the corner and, it gets shot at, and Leia, notices him and she shouts out, says, "Don't, Luke, it's a trap." That's a great line.
So we've come full circle in this review of this film. So here's the question. See what you think here. Okay, so Yoda and Ben told him not to go. It won't do you any good if you go. Nothing's going to change. So I ask you this. Had he not gone, would anything be different than the way it turned out? Think about it.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Never thought about that. But I mean, I would not have wanted to watched an Empire Strikes Back where Luke did not go because it just wouldn't have made sense for the character. Yeah.
And you know what? That's the best answer you can give me because you're totally right. You're gonna be sitting there going, "Wait a minute, that dude's not gonna go help his friends? That's stupid." I mean, red-blooded American men are going to watch the movie and go, "It's crap, go help your boy. That's your boy, go help him." So yeah, I'm with you. It wouldn't have made sense for him to stay. But I think might need to call it for what it is. I think Ben and Yoda were right. I don't think he impacted the story at all. It didn't cause Lando to change his mind. Lando changed his mind anyway. And they were getting away. They had gotten away until Leia told him to turn around and go back to get Luke. And then they got away anyhow. So Han was still frozen in carbonite. Leia and Chewbacca and 3PO still got away with Lando. So, yeah. And hindsight's 20/20, right? How are you supposed to know these things at the time? But Luke was there for, if for nothing else, two big things. One, to have the fight of his life with a weapon that he's only had 3 years with, and probably takes a lot longer than that to learn even how to wield the thing without slicing your own arm off, right? And not only did he have the fight of his life with the most evil character that has ever existed in this universe, all right? But then he finds out something pretty shocking at the end. First of all, before we get there, talk about the lightsaber duel between these two, man. How epic was it to finally see a lightsaber duel that didn't involve an old man and another old man in a suit of armor?
Yeah, it was a nice change of pace there. You know, you had the young boy Luke against the old master Vader, I guess you could say, and it made for a great duel. And of course, Vader's talking to Luke the entire time, just about saying, it's like, Obi-Wan has taught you well, and impressive, most impressive.
Yes.
Love that, man. That's pretty cool. And I think he underestimates Luke too. He's a little bit, Vader's a little bit too cocky at one point. He's wanting to do to Luke what they did with Han, because that's the Emperor's main prize. They want to, make sure nothing happens to him while he's transported. So when Luke falls into the carbon freeze chamber, Vader says, "All too easy." And it's like, and then Luke, just surprises. Well, actually, Vader doesn't realize that he's jumped out, but he comes flying out, jumps up to the ceiling, I think.
Yeah, that's the point. He's grabbing onto the structures above him and pulling himself up. So, yeah, he says the words "most impressive" because have you ever tried doing, pulling yourself up anything without using your legs? Good luck, kid. I'm just saying. It's of course we're both a bit older, all right? I'm just saying, but So yeah, man, a famous fight scene, famous lightsaber duel, and they got a lot better. I will say that about the next trilogy. The ones that he took back to episodes 1, 2, and 3. The lightsaber duels got much better, much smoother, much more screen friendly. A lot of what we see between Luke and Vader is Luke like chopping down because he's using it like a sword instead of a lightsaber. He's not allowing the blade to do what it can do. He's using it as an offensive weapon instead of defensive. So it's not like graceful. Like the Jedis of old were graceful performers with the lightsabers and very skilled. Highly skilled, knew exactly how to wield the blade to their advantage. We didn't get any of that crap. Luke's still a kid, man.
Yeah, he's still a novice. He's hasn't become the Jedi that he wants to be yet. So he's just going on what he feels like will work. At this point.
Yes, and call it for like it is. Mark Hamill, I believe, in the first Star Wars was 24. So he's 27 here. I believe the math's right. But in Star Wars, in terms of Skywalker, the man, I would guess and say that Skywalker, if he was 18 in Star Wars, he's at least 21, 22 here. So he's still a kid, really. And, he doesn't have the flow yet. He gets it later. And, it just takes time. These things take time, yes. So the fight scene's going on. Luke's doing pretty darn good until he gets his hand chopped off, and that becomes a recurring theme in the Star Wars films. We see it again, and we see it a couple of times, I believe. So that becomes a thing that links father and son later on, and links a couple of other things that happen down the road. But it's a big moment when Luke loses his hand. I actually thought, you kind of know your heroes are going to live at the end. They're going to find a way to prevail. But I'm like, Leia and Lando and Chewie are getting out. Han's gone. Luke's got no allies. Ben can't show up and save the day. Yoda's not there to help. He just lost his hand. He's beat to death. His lightsaber, by the way, is gone. Down the shaft, down that pit with his hand, gone. He's hanging on for dear life. He's bleeding. He's cut. He's ripped to shreds. It's over. At this point, he's a dead man. And then suddenly, Vader hits him with the grand idea of joining him. At that point, I'm like, okay, didn't see that coming. Dude, what a moment that is. He's your greatest enemy without Luke and Han, obviously. But Luke's the one that pulled the trigger on your greatest creation, on the Death Star, the Death Star. And now you're saying, hey, let's forget about that stuff, man. I got a seat for you right here. Just come on board. Dude, crazy stuff, man.
Yeah, when I first experienced that, I was really scared for Luke because I thought, this is it. Like you said, he was isolated, all alone, nobody there to help him. I mean, it was just him and Vader definitely had the upper hand. And he says, "Don't make me destroy you." And then he makes the offer. And then I love the acoustics in that, whatever his voice echoes. He says, "I'll never join you." And man, that really, I was just like, yes, I love that, man.
Same here. Totally agreed on that. Vader had a fairly good reason for asking Luke to join up. And this is, again, a lot of big moments in this movie, kids, but this by far for me still remains one of the most shocking moments in the history of any movie that I've ever seen. I don't know what I would even compare to it. This was a twist and all twists. A great twist. We did not see this coming. I know you didn't. I know I didn't. But Vader tells him, well, what's he tell him?
Says, "Luke, I'm your father." Oh man, yeah. Never before had I, seen anything like this in a movie. This was the greatest shock ever in cinematic history. And man, it's just like, me being 5 years old though, I'm like Luke. I didn't believe it. I was in denial. And a little funny story, for the moment, like maybe a day or two later at school, I was arguing with a friend who, knew the truth. Right. He had accepted it, and I was like, says, "No, he's not Luke's father." He goes, "Yes, he is. Did you not hear what happened at the end or later on?" And I was like, "No, I was determined that Vader was not going to be Luke's father."
Right.
Yeah, it's just a really shocking moment, and you can see the agony on Luke's face as he's trying to take this in, and he's bleeding on the face, and he just, like a snarl, he says, "No," it's like, man, when I was watching it earlier today, to refresh my memory, I kind of teared up. I almost teared up at that moment, because I felt what Luke felt, like, man, this is impossible, say this isn't so.
Yeah, an emotional scene. Like I said, this guy is basically one slice away from being dead. It's over. I mean, the Rebel Alliance, listen, again, fantasy booking, folks, if Luke Skywalker dies right here, I mean, Leia's still alive, but Vader's efforts to find her would be tripled at that point. I mean, I guess you could say if Leia dies, it's over, okay? Because she's the military mind ahead of it. She's the organizer. She's the one that they're all listening to and following her lead. But if Luke is killed here, it deals a huge blow to the rebels. And I don't know how soon they could recover from it or if they ever could. I mean, it would be the ultimate move of revenge. And what a moment that would have been had it went another way. So what we've been told, what we've understood through the years, what Mark Hamill has said, is that only 3 people knew what the line was. It was Mark Hamill, it was George Lucas, and the director Irvin Kershner. No one else knew the truth. And Irvin Kershner had the responsibility of telling him. And he's like, and showing him the line, he's like, "Is that right?" And even Mark Hamill is like, "Come on, we're not doing that, are we?" Because he was in shock as well, which I love that story.
Yeah, I mean, it's like fantasy, going over into reality. Even the actor can't believe it.
Yes. So we know that James Earl Jones did the voice for Vader. What they don't tell you a lot about is David Prowse. David Prowse was a British bodybuilder turned actor who was brought on to play Vader. He wore the Vader suit in all 3 of the original trilogy films. And even he did not have the line. The line that he delivered, what they told him to deliver, was that when Luke says, Ben told me the truth. He told me you killed him. The line was, no, Ben killed your father. Now, brother, that, I like what they did. Don't get me wrong. It spawned a whole other series of films. But that right there would have been insanely compelling to me. Like, what would have caused Ben to kill his father?
Yeah, that would have really gone, in a strange direction. Like, that would have been so much more compelling, I guess, maybe. But yeah, it turned out just right, and you got the biggest shock of your life sitting there watching it at the theater. Of course, me, I was in denial for a little while until I heard more friends say the same thing. So after a while, I had to accept it.
Same here. The first thing out of my head was, he's lying. You're going to believe the Nazi? You're going to believe this guy? You're going to believe Hitler? He's lying. It's all a lie. Because he's just getting in his head. He's playing mind games with him. But yeah, you know what? Also, I kind of knew he was telling the truth. And so, yeah, it killed me, tore me apart. But dude, talk about the references, the pop culture references when it comes to Star Wars, specifically to this film. To this day, the Luke, or the line that says, no, I am your father. Dude, that's still being used now in all forms of entertainment. Movies, TVs, books. I mean, just everywhere you can imagine. That line's still being quoted because it had that much of an impact. You know what I mean? So just, what a pivotal moment in the Skywalker saga this really is.
Yeah, you've got something great and grand on your hands when, that line is repeated for years to come afterwards. And I think a friend of mine, he and his wife had a son named Luke. They named him Luke. And they bought him a shirt. He grew up as a Star Wars fan. They bought him a shirt that said, "Who's your daddy?" or something like that. Yeah.
That's good stuff. Oh man, speaking of shirts, I got to tell this story. So at the time, a lot of the clothes that I was wearing came from, I guess, Sears, from the catalog, or the JCPenney catalog, whatever was going on. And it was the old style 80s shirt with it was like the I guess decal, and it was of Lando. It was Billy D as Lando holding a blaster. It became the coolest shirt I'd ever owned in my entire life. I counted down the days until the package was supposed to arrive at the house. I couldn't wait to put this shirt on, and I wore that shirt with pride and wore it till it absolutely shredded and fell apart. Until I was told, Tom, it's time. This thing has holes, the decal's torn to pieces, you can't even see Billy D's face anymore. It's time to give this up. And man, it took me a long time. Because I love that shirt. You know what I mean? So, yeah, there's my shirt story for this film. The lightsaber duel happens. We find out the big shocker of the moment, and then Luke chooses to throw himself off. He's spiraling downward, literally. He calls out to Leia because he's hanging on by a thread at the bottom of Cloud City here, and part of the establishment here. And he calls out to Leia, who, by the way, hears him. Now, at this point, looking back, hindsight 2020, yes. How did Leia hear him? Okay? Because she's his sister. We didn't know. They still didn't tell us. We didn't find out till Jedi. So... yeah.
At the time, I just thought that maybe Luke's, Jedi progression had gone so far, and maybe in that moment of desperation, somehow she heard him, even though they were, just like, friends. I mean, I thought maybe now Luke can reach out to anyone, and he just thought of Leia because, that was probably the closest person to him, still intact, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the excuse I gave myself too, because that's the only one that made any kind of sense. The only thing that made any kind of sense to me at all. Well, it turns out they were connected on a very deep level, DNA as it goes. So yeah, for sure. So Leia tells Lando to turn the ship around. He's like, "You gotta be kidding me." They turn around to get him. They take him back to, I guess, essentially a safe house, I guess, aboard a rebel cruiser. You see X-Wings that are safeguarding the travel, safeguarding the ships. And Luke is getting a new hand. It's an electronic hand. And we see Lando and Chewbacca, and they're going to rescue Han From the vile clutches of the evil gangster Jabba the Hutt. Notice I didn't say Pizza the Hut. That's another podcast episode.
And you talked about Luke getting the hand, the new hand, electronic hand. I've got a quick story I also want to tell. The same friend that I had the argument with about, was Vader Luke's father or not. Also, I have to tell that I was telling him a story about me and my family going to a fair sometime. And, this was one of my duh moments, big duh moment for me. I saw this structure hanging up, and I didn't know what it was, so I just stuck my hand in it, and it turned out to be a fan, and it shredded my hand. Yeah, it shredded the skin off my hand. So I pulled it out, and I'm looking at that, and it's like it's scaring me to death. And I show, my mom and dad see it, so we had to leave, and they take me to the hospital, to get patched up. But I told my friend about that, and his first reaction was, "So is that a mechanical hand?" Yeah, I could have ran with that. I was like, yeah, but at the time, I'm just really naive. And I was like, no, it's my hand. It's just. But I thought that was really, really cool.
Man, that's just something to milk for years if you can. If you get somebody believing that crap, especially as a kid, they'll believe anything. I mean, I did. So yeah, for sure. So we're drawing to a close here, folks, and we know that Lando and Chewbacca are off to, I just love doing that so much. They're off to rescue Han from Jabba, and that's how the movie ends. We end with a dun da 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 da, just a classic. And that's the end of Empire Strikes Back. At the moment that this film went off the screen in the theater, I said, my God, without knowing the verbiage at the time in my head, I'm essentially thinking, this changes the game. This is completely ending differently. Star Wars A New Hope ended on such a high note. They had finally thwarted the evil empire. We didn't know there was going to be a sequel. We didn't have any idea. No internet in those days, kids. So we had no idea. And when this film went off, I was like, I don't know if they can come back from this. This is huge. And, we were told Han was protected. We didn't know if he was dead at this point. I mean, as a kid, everything's going through your head. So, yeah, man, it was the way this film ended. It's part and parcel of what this film is that it's such a classic. And anytime a film has a sequel, during the review process, either the reviewer or the fans themselves will almost every time that you can think of, someone will come up with the line of, well, it was good, but it wasn't Empire. Because Empire is the sequel of sequels, man. It's the film that, it, like you said earlier in the show, it outdid the first one and delivered on every level possible. I mean, dude, talk to me about the importance of this film as the greatest sequel of all time.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of compare maybe Infinity War. We say that's Marvel's Empire Strikes Back because, in the end, and it was actually the first of the two,
Yes.
In the end, it's kind of like the bad guy won, and but it's not the end of the line. There's another one coming, and you just have to wait to see the heroes get redemption. And this is the greatest sequel ever. I mean, bar none. And George Lucas and those guys should be proud.
Definitely should be proud. It's a work of art, man. This entire film is just, I mean, it's one for the ages. And, you could, the entire first trilogy, the series of films, I mean, I can't put it into words. Listen, nothing that you and I are going to be able to talk about in any of these shows is actually going to do it justice, because the only thing you can really do with these movies is watch them and experience them firsthand and decide for yourself what they mean to you. I know what it means to me, just like I know what Empire means to both of us. But as always, I put you on the spot. Give me your last word on The Empire Strikes Back.
Well, I love this film for on multiple levels. I love the fact that there's a lot of mystery, a lot of, we don't know, and revelations here. And they introduce two, really, well, actually, you could say they introduce like four great characters. I mean, Yoda, the Emperor makes a cameo.
Yes.
That's two really grand master Jedis. Well, one's a Sith and the other one's, Master Jedi. And you get Lando Calrissian and you get Boba Fett, the bounty hunter. So yeah, this is the greatest sequel of all time, and it's got a lot of stuff with father and son, as we find out at the end. The relationships. That's what life is about. Relationships. Your family, your immediate family, maybe people that come into your life and you consider them family, even though they're not blood. It's just it's an amazing ride, and I can watch it over and over again, and it's almost like watching it for the first time. I love how this movie makes me react. At some points I'm laughing, some points I'm tearing up, and some points it's just I'm pumping my fist, yes. So it's got everything you want in a movie.
Absolutely, dude. I'm gonna be honest with you. There's not much I'm gonna be able to add to that. I think you said it pretty perfect. Again, greatest sequel ever made, a natural progression for all the characters involved, a fantastic sequel, a fantastic story arc. Everything about this film, like you said, it has it all. Action, adventure, a hint of mystery, romance, everything you could possibly want in a film and then some. And on top of that, it's a Star Wars film. What's not to love? The Empire Strikes Back is a classic. I love it. I'll always love it. And to me, in my humble opinion, it will always be the greatest Star Wars movie ever made. And that is The Empire Strikes Back. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.